It is in the context of learning from our history and looking forward that I want to invite to this stage our guest of honor, Dr. Howard Fuller. Dr. Fuller is a lifelong advocate for children, proponent of school choice, crusader for justice, unapologetic truth teller, and longtime friend of KIPP. He served as the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools in the early 90s and went on to found the Institute for the Transformation of Learning at Marquette University, where he is a distinguished professor of education. Dr. Fuller is also the founder of the Black Alliance for Educational Options. Dr. Fuller has contributed a life of service to the pursuits I too hold dear: freedom, equity, and justice. The title of his book, No Struggle, No Progress, is a reference to Frederick Douglass's wise words and certainly rings true in our work every day at every level. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome Dr. Fuller to the stage.
I just want to say how honored I am to be here this afternoon, and appreciate all of you all. And I know everyone in here also wants to take a moment just to send our thoughts and prayers to Mike, because his father passed. And so I just want Mike to know that we're thinking about him. I think what it's going to take is that we actually have to begin to believe in this country that our children are our most precious gift from God. And although we all say that, it's not true. And so at the most general level, all of us have really got to not only say that, but we've got to deeply believe it. And if we believe it, then we will work hard every day to make sure that every single child has an opportunity for a great education. Because I tell the students, and we have some students from our school with us, I tell them all the time that an education in America guarantees you nothing, but I will guarantee you, you will have nothing without an education. And we've got to have that absolute commitment to do whatever it takes to make that happen. Clearly, what KIPP is doing is an example. And it's not only an example, it puts to rest this lie that we can't educate children because they come from difficult families and difficult communities. We can do it in America if we have the political will. And it's important to those of us who are in this room to keep fighting to force America to have the political will to make sure that this happens.
Howard, one of the things you talk about is how important it is for reformers not to get so fixated, so wed to the strategy and tactics that we use, but to just stay focused on the purpose. How do you think we're doing in that regard?
Well, I mean, I think KIPP is an example, and so is Yes Prep and Aspire and Uncommon Schools, Achievement First, and there's a number of people, and some schools that are not CM charter management organizations. They're just people who want to create one great school in their community. So I think there are thousands of us that are really doing that well, but it's not nearly enough. And we've got to figure out a way to advance this movement at an accelerated pace. But I think we all got to understand that there are people out there who not only don't want this to go at an accelerated pace, they want to end it. And so it's all nice to come to these luncheons and everything and have a good meal and all of that. I mean, that's a good thing. It's a good meal, this and that. But but seriously, you got to leave here as warriors. I mean, we need warriors. And those of you who are investing, I beg you not to have funder fatigue, because the people that we're up against, they're in this for a lifetime. This can't just be like a couple years. I mean, we got to have a commitment to fight for as long as it takes to make this happen for our kids. And the important thing is we can do it. And KIPP and other people are proving that we can create great schools. And if we create great schools, it will change the trajectory of our kids' lives. And that's what's important.
You talk about the need to accelerate change. what advice would you have for KIPP as we seek to grow to 120,000 students across the country?
You know, I've talked to Mike a lot about this. The most general thing is that we have to have a sense of urgency, but be patient. We have to be impatient and patient. And somebody's gonna say, like, the dude's crazy. Well, it's like John Rudin, you know, from UCLA said, we gotta move quick, but not in a hurry. And so what we gotta do every day, we gotta have a sense of impatience and urgency, but we gotta be patient enough to do what it takes to make it happen. And I think the thing that all of us are concerned about is, as you continue to grow, it's to maintain that same sense of purpose that was there when it was a KIPP school in Houston and a KIPP school in the Bronx. Because the further you get away from a revolutionary effort, the harder it is to remember why you fought the revolution in the first place. And as new people come in, we've got to make sure that they come in with that same fervor, that same revolutionary spirit. Because this is not going to be won on technical grounds. This is not going to be won because of data. This is going to be won because we get into the hearts and the minds and the souls of the people that we're trying to help.
When you look across the country at the efforts of the reformers and those in opposition, what's your assessment? Are you optimistic?
It depends on what day. Today is not a good day. I don't know. I mean, you can't, like when I was at the school in Gaston, I remember speaking to the first KIPP fellows, and I spoke to 5 of them in a lobby of a Houston hotel. And 2 of them left and went to create the school in Gaston that I visited last week. You can't not be optimistic when you go from 5 people in a Houston hotel to 10,000 people in the Toyota Center, right? That you can't help but see that. But then when you get back out and you leave the Toyota Center and we leave this beautiful place, and I go back to the wars that we're fighting in Milwaukee. I go back to the wars we're fighting in Newark. I go back to the wars that we're fighting in New Orleans, the wars we're fighting in Camden, all over this country. We got to realize that we still have a huge battle in front of us. And even though we have victories, we're nowhere near what John asked me about upstairs, the tipping point. And I would say this to all the young reformers. You don't just win based on great ideas. You win based on a commitment to making those great ideas a reality. And you can only do that if you're willing to fight. I hear people all the time say, you know, I'm just a teacher. No. First of all, there is no such thing as just a teacher. A teacher is huge. But not only do you have to be a teacher and a school leader, you're also going to have to get in the political battle that it takes so that you have a legal and regulatory environment that allows the KIPP schools to continue. I mean, we just have so many battles ahead, but if you ask me tomorrow, I'll be more optimistic than I am today. So check with me tomorrow.
For people who want to know, how do I get engaged in that battle? What do you tell them? What's the best thing?
There's all kinds of different ways. There are people who get engaged by writing a check. There are people who get engaged by coming to a meeting. I mean, I explain to people all the time, the way I see social change takes place is that there's a small circle of people who are going to storm the Bastille. Then there's a circle of people around them who are going to hold the coats of the people who are going to storm the Bastille. They're not storming the Bastille, but they're holding the coats. There's another circle of people around them who are going to cheer for the coat holders. They're not going to hold the coats. They're not going to storm the Bastille. No, seriously, but the key is understanding all the different roles that we're going to play and make each one of those individuals know that their role is appreciated. And it's that way. I mean, Margaret Mead said, no social change of any significance has ever taken place without a small group of committed people who say that this is going to be done. And that's what we got to do.
Well, in this room, we've got a group of committed people. How do we cultivate new champions who maybe aren't aware of the issues, but if they knew, would want to join our cause?
I think we got to keep communicating. We got to keep communicating. And plus, we got to start making sure that the young people who come to a KIPP school or to Milwaukee Collegiate Academy, we got to make sure that they know why this exists and that they've got to become a part of this. They've got to become committed. That's why it's so important to see KIPPsters who graduated come back to teach in KIPP schools or come back to be leaders or run for public office. All of these things are going to be needed for us to change the trajectory of our children's lives. This is America. And I tell people all the time, there's this thing that is like in my heart, that on February 1st, 1960, 4 students from North Carolina A&T sit down at a lunch counter and demanded to be served. And here we are in 2014, 4 black students sit down at a lunch counter where they're welcome and can't read the menu. This is unacceptable in America. It is unacceptable for this to happen in America.
One of the things I have always appreciated about you is your courage and conviction and how forthright you are in talking about the dynamics of race and class and power. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we as a reformed community in really getting that? And where would you place KIPP on that continuum?
We're at a 5, sort of, 4-ish, 5-ish. KIPP is probably like at a 7 or 8. And I say that, and if I didn't believe it, I would not have said that. But I know the commitment of the people in KIPP. There's nobody out here I trust more than Mike Feinberg. And when I was in that Toyota Center, to see the level of diversity was huge. But now we got to move from diversity to talking about power. Because it's important to be in the room, but if you're in the room with no power, it's an illusion of being in the room. And so now we got to actually begin to talk about how does the power transition take place? And what does that look like? And it isn't just about race. It's about race and class. Because there are Black and Latino people who are bougie, who don't know how to deal with poor Black and Latino people. And just because they rolling up in the room, that don't mean the problem has been solved. We got to deal with both race and class, and power is central to the kind of change that I know for years I've talked with Mike about.
This is such a teaser, this conversation. I highly encourage every one of you to pick up a copy of Howard's book, No Struggle, No Progress, and read it from cover to cover. You will not be disappointed. Howard, I thank you for sharing your wisdom, and I'd love for you to share closing thoughts with our audience as we are at this pivotal point of growth.
My closing thoughts would be this: if there is no struggle, there is no progress. And those of us who profess to favor freedom, but yet deprecate agitation, are people who want the crops without plowing up the ground. We want the rain without the thunder and the lightning. We want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. And this struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or maybe both a moral and a physical one, but it must be a struggle. Because power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. And people may not get all that they pay for in this world, but they most certainly must pay for all that they get. Show me the exact amount of wrongs and injustices that are visited upon a people, and I will show you the exact amount of wrongs and injustices that are endured by these people. And these wrongs and injustices must be fought with words or with blows or with both, because the limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. So said Frederick Douglass.
Thank you.
Thank you.